The cold expanse of space stretched endlessly before the human fleet, their ships cutting through the void as they ventured deeper into uncharted territories. Captain Elias Voss gazed out from the bridge of the Crescent Dawn, a large exploration vessel. For weeks, they had been mapping distant star systems, cataloging celestial bodies, and recording data on countless unknown planets. Yet the discovery of a faint signal, a distress call, had drawn them to the forgotten edge of the galaxy. The signal had led them to a planet, a once thriving world now left to rot in isolation. Scifi, the humans called it, a desolate rock in the farthest reaches of the sector. From orbit, it seemed like any other dead planet, barren and lifeless. But Captain Voss could sense something more. There was history here, a story waiting to be uncovered. As the Crescent Dawn descended into Scifi's atmosphere, the crew marveled at the sight of ancient ruins scattered across the landscape. Towering structures of strange, alien design loomed like broken monuments to a forgotten civilization. Wind howled through the skeletal remains of cities, and the air tasted faintly of rust. The Zilkesh, they were called, the people who had once lived here, an insectoid species known for their complex societies and advanced technologies. Yet now, they were nothing more than a shadow of their former selves, their population scattered and dwindling. Their once great empire had collapsed, and their allies had abandoned them. The Dominion, a vast empire of powerful beings, had cast them aside, leaving the Zilkesh to fade into history. Captain Voss's voice echoed through the ship's intercom, a calm but firm command. "Prepare for landing. All hands, suit up." The crew followed the order, securing their gear and making ready for the unknown. The planet's atmosphere was breathable, but caution was necessary. As the ship settled onto the dusty ground, the doors opened with a soft hiss. The crew disembarked, their boots crunching on the cracked earth. A few of them held scanners, carefully checking the environment. The air was thin, but it was enough for survival. The remnants of Zilkesh technology were scattered all around them. Dilapidated vehicles, broken machines, and crumbling buildings. Everything told a story of a once proud civilization, now lost to time. Voss led the team through the ruins, his sharp eyes scanning every detail. They passed a wide plaza where statues of towering Zilkesh warriors stood, their features eroded by centuries of neglect. The captain's thoughts raced. What had happened to them? How had such an advanced race fallen so far? As they approached a large, circular structure that seemed to be some sort of council hall, Voss spotted something unusual. Movement, a flicker at the edge of his vision. His hand instinctively went to the sidearm at his waist, but he did not draw it. This was not the time for hostility. Out of the shadows, a figure emerged. Tall and slender, the alien's body resembled that of an insect, its long, segmented limbs moving with unnatural grace. It was one of them, the Zilkesh. But this was no soldier or warrior. This was something else entirely. The creature's eyes were deep and tired, yet there was a glimmer of intelligence in them. Its body was scared, as if it had survived a long, brutal struggle. Its once vibrant carapace had dulled, and its movements were slow, deliberate. It had the look of someone who had lost everything. "We are the last," the alien spoke in a voice that was raspy, yet firm. The words echoed through the empty streets. "The last of the Zilkesh. The Dominion has forsaken us. They left us to die." Captain Voss stood still, absorbing the words. He could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. The Zilkesh were a species caught between two worlds, the past, when they were a mighty force in the galaxy, and the present, where they were forgotten and broken. "We're not here to fight," Voss said, his voice calm and steady. "We came because we received your distress signal. We're here to help." The Zilkesh stared at him, doubt written across its face. "Help." The alien's voice was laced with disbelief. "No one has helped us. Not since they abandoned us." But there was something in the captain's eyes, something the Zilkesh recognized. A promise. a spark of hope. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the alien allowed itself to hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, humanity was the ally they had waited so long for. The cold wind howled across the desolate landscape of Scifi, carrying with it the distant sounds of crumbling structures and the rustling of dead leaves. Captain Elias Voss and his team walked alongside the Zilkesh, following the strange alien toward a hidden chamber beneath the ruins of an ancient temple. Their guide, a Zilkesh named Threx, had agreed to meet them in private. The captain's instincts told him this was where the truth would finally be revealed. The story of what had happened to the Zilkesh. As they approached the entrance to the chamber, Threx stopped. He turned to face Voss, his insectoid features solemn. "You wish to know our story, Captain, but it is not an easy one to tell. Many years have passed, and the pain of it still lingers." Voss nodded. "We can handle the truth, whatever it may be." The Zilkesh took a deep breath and stepped forward, gesturing for the humans to follow. Inside, the chamber was dimly lit by glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The air was cool and thick with the weight of lost history. At the center of the room, an ancient holographic display flickered to life. Images of a once thriving world appeared: tall cities, lush green forests, and Zilkesh warriors marching in unison. "This is Scifi, as it once was," Threx said, his voice heavy with sadness. "We were a proud people, united under the banner of the Dominion. Our warriors were unmatched, our technology beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. We served the Dominion with honor, believing that our strength would be our legacy." The holographic images shifted, showing battlefields filled with Zilkesh forces fighting alongside Dominion soldiers. Their weapons were powerful, their tactics precise. But the smile on Threx's face faltered as the display shifted once more. The once grand cities were replaced with scenes of war and destruction. But everything changed when the Dominion decided we were no longer useful. Threx continued, his mandibles clicking as he spoke. "When we had defeated our enemies, when our usefulness was spent, the Dominion abandoned us. Our allies turned their backs, and the destruction of our homeworld began." Voss listened in silence, his heart heavy with the weight of Threx's words. He could sense the pain, the betrayal, that the Zilkesh had endured. It was a story not unlike those of many oppressed peoples across the galaxy, betrayed by those they had once trusted, left to die on the edge of the universe. "We fought to the last," Threx said, his eyes darkening. "We tried to hold our cities, protect our people, but the Dominion's betrayal was swift and cruel. They sent their fleets to destroy us, and we could do nothing to stop it. In the end, Scifi fell, and we were left behind, scattered across the galaxy, without purpose, without hope." Voss could hear the bitterness in Threx's voice. It was clear that the Zilkesh had been more than just soldiers. They had been pawns in a game they didn't understand. And when they were no longer needed, they had been discarded. "The Dominion left us for dead," Threx continued. "Our allies, the ones we had fought so hard for, vanished. The very empire we had served turned its back on us. They saw us as nothing more than tools to be used and thrown away." The room fell silent. The captain felt a deep sense of anger rising within him, but he knew better than to show it. The Zilkesh needed more than just words. They needed action. They needed an ally who would stand with them, not just in battle, but in their struggle for survival. "I understand now," Voss said, his voice steady. "The Dominion abandoned you, but that doesn't mean you have to be alone." Threx's eyes flickered with something. Was it hope? Voss wasn't sure, but he couldn't deny the change in the air. The Zilkesh had lost everything, but now, for the first time in years, they might have found something they thought was lost forever: an ally. "We are not the same as the Dominion," Voss continued. "We came here to help, and we will help you rebuild. We will stand with you, fight with you, whatever it takes." Threx didn't speak for a long moment, his antennae twitching as he processed the captain's words. Finally, he spoke, his voice soft but resolute. "You are different. Perhaps in you, we can trust. Captain Voss extended his hand, a gesture of unity. Together, we can fight back. Together, we can show the galaxy that the Zilkesh are not finished. You have allies now. The Zilkesh stared at the hand for a long moment, unsure. But then, with a slow and deliberate motion, Frex reached out, touching Voss's hand. It was a small gesture, but in that moment, it felt like the beginning of something greater. The Zilkesh had been abandoned, left to fade into the past. But now, they had found an unlikely ally in humanity. The ghosts of betrayal were still present, lingering in the corners of their minds. But now, there was something else. Hope. And with hope came the possibility of a future. The days following Captain Voss's meeting with Threx were filled with intense activity. The humans worked alongside the Zilkesh to repair old structures, offer medical aid, and salvage anything useful from the ruins of their once thriving civilization. It was clear that the Zilkesh had seen better days. Their resources were almost depleted, and their population was dangerously small. Yet despite everything, there was a noticeable shift in the air, a spark of hope that had long been absent. Captain Voss could see it in the eyes of the Zilkesh warriors. There was still a deep suspicion, but it was fading. Slowly, they were beginning to trust the humans. Perhaps it was the generosity of the humans, or maybe it was the simple act of not being abandoned for once. Either way, something had changed. Threx had become more open, his hard exterior softening with each passing day. It wasn't easy, but the captain knew that trust was something that had to be earned. And earning it would require more than just sharing food and supplies. It would require proving that humanity was not like the Dominion, that they wouldn't abandon the Zilkesh when things got tough. One evening, as the twin moons of Scifi rose over the horizon, Voss found himself standing beside Threx in a quiet corner of the ruined city. The cool night air stirred the dust around them, but neither of them seemed to mind. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was filled with understanding. "I never thought I would see another sunrise on this world," Threx said quietly, his eyes fixed on the distant sky. "We've been fighting for so long, Captain. Every day feels like a battle. But now I'm not so sure." Voss nodded, sensing the change in the Zilkesh warrior. Threx wasn't just talking about the battles against the Dominion anymore. He was talking about the battle within himself, the struggle to believe that something could truly change. "You don't have to fight alone anymore," Voss said, his voice calm but firm. "We're here to help, Threx, and we won't turn our backs on you." The Zilkesh looked at him, his antennae twitching thoughtfully. "I want to believe that, but it's hard. We've been betrayed before, Captain. So many times. By so many." Voss understood. The Zilkesh had been used and abandoned for so long that trusting anyone, even those who had shown kindness, was nearly impossible. But this was different. He would make sure of that. "We're not going anywhere," Voss said, his tone sincere. "We've seen what you've gone through. We won't let history repeat itself." Threx seemed to consider this for a long time, his eyes narrowing as if weighing Voss's words. The silence stretched between them, but it was no longer uncomfortable. It was a moment of shared understanding, of mutual respect. Finally, Threx nodded. Perhaps you are different. I will take you at your word, Captain, but I need to show my people that this is real." Voss smiled. "Then let's show them together." The next morning, the humans and Zilkesh gathered in the heart of the ruined city. The air was thick with anticipation as Voss stepped forward, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd. He had been preparing for this moment ever since they had landed on Scifi. It was time to prove that humanity was not just offering empty promises. "We are not your enemies," Voss began, his words clear and strong. "We've seen the hardships you've endured, and we know what it's like to be left behind. But we are here, today, to stand with you, to rebuild what was lost, to fight alongside you, not just in battle, but in your struggle to survive. Together, we will not be forgotten." There was a pause as the Zilkesh looked at one another, their expressions unreadable. Then, slowly, one by one, they stepped forward. Threx was the first to approach Voss, his tall figure cutting a sharp silhouette against the rising sun. "Captain Voss," Threx said, his voice steady but filled with a deep emotion. "For too long, we have been shadows. But today, you offer us something more. You offer us a chance to fight for our future." He extended his hand, a gesture of trust. Voss took it without hesitation, feeling the weight of the moment. This wasn't just a handshake. It was the beginning of something far greater. It was the first step toward forging a true alliance between the humans and the Zilkesh. And in that moment, the captain knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be battles, there would be hardships, and there would be many challenges to face. But there was also something stronger now, something that had been missing for so long: hope. As the humans and Zilkesh stood together in the ruined heart of Scifi, a new chapter began. It wasn't the beginning of a war. It was the beginning of a partnership, one that would change the course of history for both species. And in the distance, as the sun rose higher in the sky, Voss couldn't help but feel a flicker of excitement. This was just the beginning. Together, they would rebuild. Captain Elias Voss stood on the bridge of the Crescent Dawn, staring out into the vast emptiness of space. The stars were distant and cold, and the silence of the void seemed to press in around him. But it wasn't the silence that worried him. It was the threat that loomed just beyond the horizon. An enemy he had hoped to never face again: the Dominion. In the months since the humans had arrived on Scifi, they had worked tirelessly with the Zilkesh, helping them rebuild and regain some of the strength they had lost. The partnership between humanity and the Zilkesh had begun to take shape, and Voss had seen real progress. The Zilkesh had rebuilt some of their old defenses and even began to train their warriors in the ways of modern warfare, with the humans offering their advanced technology and strategies. But the shadow of the Dominion still hung over them all. The humans had known about the Dominion, an oppressive empire that spanned vast stretches of space. But until now, they had kept their distance. Now, with the signal they had uncovered on Scifi, they had confirmed their worst fears. The Dominion was coming. "Captain, we've intercepted another transmission," Lieutenant Aria said, breaking Voss's concentration. She stood at the communication station, her fingers dancing across the console. "It's a fleet, headed this way." Voss's heart sank. He knew what this meant. The Dominion was preparing to wipe out the Zilkesh once again, and now they had humanity to deal with as well. "Can you identify the fleet's size and composition?" Voss asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Lieutenant Aria's fingers moved quickly over the controls. "Yes, Captain. It's a full Dominion war fleet. At least 20 ships, including several dreadnoughts and cruisers. They're coming fast." Voss turned toward the Zilkesh delegation, who had been watching the exchange in silence. Threx, the leader of the Zilkesh survivors, stood tall and proud, his insectoid features unreadable. But Voss could see the tension in his body language, the way his antennae twitched nervously. "They know we're here," Threx said, his voice a low growl, "and they will not hesitate to destroy us." Voss nodded, his mind racing. The Dominion was a ruthless empire, known for its brutal tactics and overwhelming military power. They had already crushed the Zilkesh once, and now they would return to finish the job. "We need to prepare," Voss said, his voice firm. "We can't afford to lose. Not this time." In the days that followed, the humans and Zilkesh worked together to build up their defenses. The Zilkesh shared their ancient war technology, while the humans taught them how to use their advanced weapons and tactics. It was a difficult process, but with every passing hour, the two species grew closer. The Zilkesh had always been proud warriors, and under Voss's guidance, they began to understand the true meaning of strategy. The humans weren't just there to fight, they were there to lead. But even with all the preparation, Voss knew that the odds were against them. The Dominion fleet was massive, and their technology was far more advanced. It would be a miracle if they could hold their ground. As the war fleet grew closer, the Zilkesh gathered their forces. Their warriors, once scattered and broken, now stood together, ready to face their enemies. The Crescent Dawn would lead the charge, but they weren't alone. The Zilkesh had proven their courage, and Voss had seen the fire in their eyes. They were no longer just victims. They were allies, and they would fight side by side with humanity. The battle for Xethysphor was about to begin. Voss stood at the helm of the Crescent Dawn, watching the first of the Dominion ships appear in the distance. Their dark silhouettes loomed against the stars, an ominous reminder of the power they wielded. The captain felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it. There was no turning back now. "Prepare for battle," Voss shouted. "All hands to your stations." The crew sprang into action, their training kicking in as they moved with purpose. The Zilkesh warriors took their positions alongside the human soldiers, their weapons ready. Everyone knew what was at stake. If they lost this battle, Xethysphor would fall, and the Zilkesh would be wiped out once again. Voss watched as the first wave of Dominion ships moved into position, their weapons powering up. The humans and Zilkesh had set up a defensive perimeter around the planet, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Still, the captain refused to back down. He knew that they had one thing the Dominion didn't: hope. With a deep breath, Voss looked toward the Zilkesh warriors. They had suffered so much, but they were not afraid to fight. This was their last chance to reclaim their future. Together, humanity and the Zilkesh would face the Dominion. And no matter the outcome, Voss knew that they would never be the same again. As the battle began, Captain Voss and Threx exchanged a brief, knowing glance. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a fight for everything the Zilkesh had lost, and for everything the humans had come to protect. And in the shadows of the Dominion warships, a new alliance was about to make its mark on the galaxy. The sky above Xethysphor crackled with energy as the Dominion fleet drew closer. Captain Elias Voss stood at the helm of the Crescent Dawn, his hands gripping the controls tightly. His heart raced with anticipation, but he kept his expression calm. Around him, the crew was ready, their faces set in determination. The Zilkesh warriors stood alongside the humans, their weapons ready, their bodies tense with readiness. Voss looked to his right, where Threx stood, his insectoid features a mask of calm resolve. The Zilkesh had come a long way since the humans arrived on Xethysphor, and now they were about to face their greatest test yet. The Dominion had returned to finish what they started. But this time, the Zilkesh would not fall alone. They had humanity by their side. "Captain," Lieutenant Aria called out from the communications station, her voice sharp with focus. "We're getting a transmission from the Dominion fleet. They're hailing us." Voss turned, his gaze narrowing. He didn't trust the Dominion, and he knew they wouldn't be offering peace. Still, he had to hear what they had to say. "Put it through," he ordered. A cold, mechanical voice filled the room, chilling the air. "This is Fleet Admiral Shkar of the Dominion Empire. You are surrounded. Surrender now, and we will grant you a swift end. Resist, and we will destroy you all." The transmission ended abruptly, and Voss could feel the weight of those words hanging in the air. He knew the Dominion didn't make empty threats, but surrender was not an option. The Zilkesh had suffered enough. "We will not surrender," Voss said firmly, turning to face the crew and the Zilkesh. "Prepare for battle." The Crescent Dawn shook as it powered up its weapons, and the fleet of Dominion ships moved into position, their massive forms blotting out the stars. The humans and Zilkesh formed their defensive line, ready to fight with everything they had. But even with all their preparation, Voss knew this would be a tough battle. The Dominion had overwhelming numbers and superior firepower. The humans and Zilkesh would have to use strategy, skill, and their unity to have any chance of success. "Captain," Lieutenant Aria called again, her voice steady but urgent. "The first wave is coming in. We've got incoming fire." Voss nodded, his jaw tightening. The battle had begun. "Shields up," he shouted. The Crescent Dawn shuddered as the first Dominion weapons struck its shields. The energy field flickered but held strong. Around them, the Zilkesh ships launched their counterattacks, firing blasts of energy at the oncoming Dominion vessels. It was a chaotic scene. Ships dodging blasts, maneuvering at breakneck speeds, and firing relentlessly. Voss gripped the controls tighter as the Crescent Dawn swung into action. "Focus fire on their lead dreadnought," he ordered. "Target their engines." The crew worked quickly, their training evident as they followed his commands. The ship's weapon systems powered up, and a volley of concentrated fire struck the Dominion dreadnought's engines, causing a massive explosion. The enemy ship shuddered and veered off course, disabled but not destroyed. Threx's voice came over the comm, steady and confident. "The Zilkesh will press the attack. We will not let them break through." The Zilkesh fleet surged forward, their ships engaging the Dominion with fierce precision. Voss couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. The Zilkesh had fought valiantly in the past, but this was different. This time, they were fighting for their future, not as pawns in someone else's game. The Dominion, however, was relentless. Another barrage of fire hit the Crescent Dawn, causing the ship to lurch. Alarms blared as the shields flickered dangerously low. Voss cursed under his breath, gripping the console as he struggled to keep the ship steady. "Shields failing, Captain," Lieutenant Aria shouted. "We need to get out of this position." "Not yet," Voss growled. "Hold the line. We're not giving up this easily." The battle raged on, the sound of explosions and energy blasts filling the air. The humans and Zilkesh were outnumbered, but they were making the most of every opportunity. The Crescent Dawn dodged another round of fire, sending out precise counterattacks that struck at the heart of the Dominion fleet. Threx's voice came through again, this time with more urgency. "Captain, we've detected a weak spot in their formation. We have an opportunity to break through. The Dominion is concentrated around their flagship. If we can disrupt their command center, we might be able to force them to retreat." Voss's mind raced. The flagship was heavily guarded, but it was their best chance. If they could take down the Dominion's leadership, the rest of the fleet might lose cohesion and scatter. "Take us in," Voss ordered, his voice sharp with determination. "All ships, focus on that flagship. We hit them hard and fast." The Crescent Dawn shot forward, weaving through fire from the Dominion ships. The Zilkesh followed close behind, their ships firing in perfect sync with the humans. It was a risky move, but there was no other choice. They had to take the fight to the heart of the enemy. With a final, concentrated assault, the Crescent Dawn unleashed a devastating volley of energy blasts, targeting the Dominion flagship's command center. The ship exploded in a massive fireball, sending shockwaves through the Dominion fleet. For a moment, everything went silent. The remaining Dominion ships hesitated, unsure of what to do. Then, as if on cue, the fleet began to retreat, scattering into the darkness of space. "We did it," Aria breathed, her voice filled with disbelief. Voss looked out at the remains of the Dominion fleet, a deep sense of relief washing over him. This battle is won, but the war is far from over. The humans and Zilkesh had struck a blow against the Dominion, but Voss knew that they couldn't stop now. They had to stay vigilant. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, there was hope. The aftermath of the battle was a strange, quiet kind of victory. The remnants of the Dominion fleet had retreated, scattered into the far reaches of space, leaving Scifi eerily silent. The planet's sky, once filled with flashes of energy and explosions, was now clear. The threat, for now, was over. Captain Elias Voss stood on the balcony of the Crescent Dawn, looking out at the stillness. His crew had worked hard, and the Zilkesh warriors had fought with courage that Voss could never have predicted. Together, they had repelled the Dominion. But the victory felt different, quieter than he had imagined it would be. The battle had been hard-fought, and they had lost many good people, humans and Zilkesh alike. "Captain," Lieutenant Arya said, her voice pulling him from his thoughts. She stepped up beside him, her expression serious but calm. "We've received a transmission from the Zilkesh Council. They want to speak with you." Voss nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. It had been Threx who had first sent the message, acknowledging that, despite their victory, the Zilkesh were still a wounded people. Their planet was in ruins, their population in danger of being wiped out. There was much to be done, and the humans' work had only just begun. "Let's go," he said, his tone firm. The Zilkesh Council's transmission was brief but direct. Threx appeared on the screen, his expression filled with a mix of gratitude and quiet sorrow. "Captain Voss," Threx began, his voice steady, "what you have done for us, what you and your people have given, is something we can never repay. The Dominion would have destroyed us without you. You have proven to be more than allies. You have become friends." Voss met his gaze, the words hanging heavily in the air. "It was our honor to help, Threx. We're not leaving. Not now. Not ever." Threx's antennae twitched in acknowledgement. "We are rebuilding, Captain. But we cannot do it alone. Our people are few. Our resources are scarce. We need your help to grow again, to reclaim what we have lost." Voss felt a deep sense of responsibility. The battle had been won, but the real work was just beginning. The Zilkesh needed more than just protection. They needed a future. They needed a chance to heal, to rebuild their civilization. "You will have our help," Voss said without hesitation. "We'll do everything we can." Threx's eyes softened, a rare sign of emotion in the usually stoic warrior. "Together, we can rebuild. Together, we will become stronger." The transmission ended, and Voss stood in silence for a long moment, his thoughts racing. The Zilkesh had suffered enough. They were a proud and ancient race, but they had been brought to the brink of extinction by the Dominion. Now, with humanity's help, they had a chance to stand tall again. The next few weeks were filled with activity. The humans worked alongside the Zilkesh, helping to restore their infrastructure, providing technology and resources, and sharing knowledge. It was a long and arduous process, but it was the only way to ensure the Zilkesh would not fall into the same trap again. They needed a strong foundation, one built on trust, mutual respect, and cooperation. Voss spent many hours speaking with Threx, strategizing how they could rebuild their defenses and fortify their new alliance. The Zilkesh warriors trained alongside the humans, learning new tactics and honing their skills. The humans, too, learned from the Zilkesh, ancient knowledge that had been lost to time. As the days passed, the two species grew closer, their bond deepening with every shared effort. They weren't just allies anymore. They were family, bound by the shared experience of surviving together and fighting for something bigger than themselves. One evening, as the sun set behind the ruins of the old city, Voss stood on the balcony again, gazing out at the new world they were creating. The sky was now calm, the air clear. The sound of workers and soldiers echoed in the distance as the Zilkesh and humans worked side by side, rebuilding the planet from the ashes. Threx appeared beside him, his quiet presence a reminder of how far they had come. "We have a long road ahead," Voss said, his voice thoughtful. "But we're not alone anymore." "No," Threx agreed, his voice filled with quiet strength. "We are not alone." The captain turned to him, meeting his gaze. "This is just the beginning, Threx. Together, we will make sure that the Dominion's shadow never falls on this world again." The Zilkesh leader nodded, his antennae flicking in agreement. "Yes, together, we will ensure our future." Voss smiled, a sense of satisfaction settling over him. They had faced the darkest of times, but now, as the stars began to twinkle in the evening sky, there was hope. The people of Sethis had a chance to rebuild their world, to create a new future, and for the first time in a long while, they had a chance to live in peace. As the night deepened, Voss couldn't help but feel that the bond between humanity and the Zilkesh had just begun. This wasn't just an alliance, it was the foundation of something greater. And for the first time, the captain believed that anything was possible. Months had passed since the battle for HFY, and the planet was slowly coming back to life. The scars from the war were still visible: ruined cities, broken structures, and the remnants of the Dominion's warships scattered across the surface. But the people of HFY, humans and Zilkesh alike, had worked tirelessly to rebuild what had been lost. Together, they were making progress. Captain Elias Voss stood at the edge of the newly constructed Zilkesh Council Hall, watching as the sun dipped below the horizon. The world was healing, and so were its people. The Zilkesh, once broken and scattered, were beginning to stand tall again. Their cities were being rebuilt, their warriors training harder than ever, and their spirits, though battered, were unyielding. Beside him stood Threx, the Zilkesh leader, his posture proud despite the challenges they had faced. The two had become close during the months of rebuilding, not just as allies, but as brothers in arms. They had shared victories, losses, and everything in between. And now, they stood on the threshold of a new chapter in their history. "Do you ever wonder," Threx asked, his voice filled with quiet contemplation, "what might have happened if we had never met the humans? If we had continued fighting alone?" Voss glanced at him, seeing the weight in his eyes. The Zilkesh had been through so much, and it was natural for Threx to ask such questions. It was something Voss had thought about too. But in the end, he knew the answer. "We would have fallen," Voss replied simply. "The Dominion would have destroyed you, but now, you have a chance to rebuild. We both do." Threx nodded, his antennae flicking thoughtfully. "Yes, I see it now. The Dominion was a force we could not defeat on our own. But together, we have proven that we can overcome any obstacle." The words hung in the air, powerful and true. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about thriving, building something stronger than what had been before. The humans and Zilkesh had faced the darkest of times together, and now they were working side by side to forge a future full of hope. Voss turned his gaze to the horizon, where the first signs of a new dawn were beginning to appear. The stars were beginning to fade as the sun's light bathed the planet in a warm glow. It felt like a symbol of everything they had achieved and everything that was yet to come. "Your people are strong," Voss said, his voice full of admiration. "You're more than just survivors, Threx. You're fighters. And you've proven that you can stand on your own 2 feet. Threx's eyes softened as he regarded his human friend. "And we could not have done it without you, Captain. We have much to learn from your people, but we also have much to teach." The words were true. The Zilkesh had ancient wisdom, forgotten technologies and strategies that had once made them one of the most feared civilizations in the galaxy. The humans had brought new ideas, new technology, and a spirit of cooperation that had helped unite the Zilkesh people once more. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts. "Do you think the Dominion will return?" Threx asked, his voice quieter now. Voss shook his head slowly. "Not anytime soon. We've given them a reason to think twice. But we can't rest. We must be ready for anything." Threx stood tall, his expression unwavering. "Then we will be ready. The Zilkesh will stand strong, and with the humans beside us, we will never fall again." Voss smiled at his friend, feeling a deep sense of pride. The Zilkesh had come so far, and the humans had played a critical role in that. Together, they had shown that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope could still triumph. As the day drew to a close, the captain and the Zilkesh leader stood together in silence, gazing out at the world they had saved. The work was far from over, but the future was brighter than it had ever been before. "Captain," a voice broke the quiet moment. It was Lieutenant Aria, her tone filled with excitement. "You'll want to see this." Voss turned to her, his curiosity piqued. Arya led him to the communications room, where a new transmission was waiting. On the screen was a face he hadn't seen in months, Admiral Harris, the leader of the human fleet. "Captain Voss," Harris said, his voice steady but with an unmistakable hint of pride. "I just wanted to congratulate you. The report is in, and the Dominion is officially backing off. Their resources are stretched thin, and they've suffered heavy losses. They won't be coming after you anytime soon." Voss let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. For the first time in a long while, there was peace. "We're not done yet," Voss replied, his voice filled with determination. "There's still work to do, but thank you." The screen went black, and Voss turned back to Threx, who stood by the window, looking out at the horizon. The sun was now fully set, leaving a blanket of stars in the sky. "This is just the beginning, Threx," Voss said, his voice filled with confidence. "The future is ours to shape." Threx looked at him, a small, rare smile crossing his face. "Together." And with that, the captain and the Zilkesh leader knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The future was bright, and as long as they stood side by side, nothing could stop them.